Hello and welcome back to the channel, David's Insight. Today I will be reviewing episode 6 of My Hero Academia Vigilantes titled, Crossing Lines. Apologies for the once again delayed release on this one. As always, I'd also just quickly like to mention that I am an anime-only fan of the show. Without any further ado, the episode begins introducing a Yakuza villain group, portraying them as a big threat to come. However, later, Stendhal suddenly crashes in through their window. Believing it's some kind of enemy attack, all the members go on the offensive with their quirks. Stendhal effortlessly dodges their attacks and plants himself on a wall, before looking for blood-stained bandages plastered to his arm guard. Using his quirk, Bloodcurdle, all 4 Yakuza members are paralyzed and unable to move, leaving them wide open for Stendhal to swoop down and cut them down in a few sword strokes. 3 more members of the group then flood in to try and take on Stendhal, but they too quickly fall to the Vigilante's cruel judgment, kicking the episode off with immediate action and more mystery. This also gives more Stain foreshadowing as we begin to recognize his quirk, Bloodcurdle, from the former show. After his work's finished, Stendhal begins changing out of his uniform in an alley as Keen approaches and tries to strike up conversation with him. The man shuts down the high schooler's playful referral to him as Mr. Judgment and later his actual codename, Stendhal, as he's not wearing his mask at the moment, which relegates him to a simple human being. Stendhal believes his alias is something more than a simple human being, but an embodiment of judgment who occupies and widens the space between life and death. Keen then asks Stendhal for the blood samples for the Yakuza members she loaned him for his job and suggests that next time he let her pick his next target. Stendhal tells Keen not to push her luck before leaving, warning her that she is just as eligible for his judgment as they were. Keen is still in high spirits despite Stendhal keeping his distance from her, since the man picked the crime and quote-unquote vermin-ridden Narahata to do his vigilante work. The next day, Moyoru and Soga go to visit Rapt in the hospital, who was admitted after he was smacked into a building during Mario's rampage. As the 3 share a smoke outside, Rapt tells his crew that he'll be discharged later this weekend, which Moyoru attributes to the regenerative properties of his lizard quirk, and the boost in power granted by the trigger he injected into himself. Rapt doesn't want to give the drug too much credit, as while it toughened him up, it also put him in the situation that sent him to the hospital in the first place. Soga asks Rapt if he's up to try using his new flying abilities out once he feels better, which the lizard man passes on since he now believes flying should be left for the birds. Later that night, Keen meets up with Soga to discuss another trigger deal, though she is surprised that the man didn't bring Moyoru and Rapt along. Soga says his friends have nothing to do with this deal, which Keen retorts by framing Stendhal's actions as the sudden, random crime of a mysterious serial killer that the crew need to fight against. Soga rejects her cutesy persuasion to do more tests with Trigger and begins to walk away, before being stopped by Stendhal himself. The vigilante just wants to cut to the chase and kill his target, and Keen offers one last chance to take her supply of Trigger in order to fight the vigilante on the spot, otherwise Stendhal would just move on to kill Moyoru and Rapt after he finishes his business here. This scene demonstrates how much of a manipulator Keen is, just like All for One. I am intrigued as to what her fate will be as well as our main vigilantes, as obviously there isn't appearance or word of them within the OG show. Soga swats the vials of Trigger out of her hands and brandishes his spikes at Stendhal, telling the vigilante that he doesn't need Keen's help to fight him. The girl is disappointed in Soga's rejection but thankfully has a backup in the form of her bees. The insects beginning swarming out of her eye patch and sting Soga in multiple places with their trigger-filled abdomens. Soga starts getting enraged, not at the stinging, but more at the cheerful face Keen makes as she leaves the men to fight it out in the alley. The man believes it's the same smug face and demeanor most people always mask and use to look down on him, whether it's his childhood friends or people growing scared of him because of his quirk and appearance, his teachers admonishing his behavior in school, or even when he forced Koichi to grovel in that alley the first day they met. Now, although this does give Soga some backstory and make us feel even if it's a little bit of remorse, it doesn't really justify his actions from episode 1. I believe this type of trope works better with characters like Himiko Toga. The man believes all this made him feel and turn to act like a monster, and thanks to the rapid injection of Trigger, he becomes the things he hates the most and morphs into a bulky, porcupine-like beast. Stendhal writes the sudden transformation as Soga showing his true colors and brandishes his katana in preparation to kill the instant villain. The crawler then rushes in after hearing Soga's screams while on patrol and freaks out upon recognizing both men instantly. Stendhal tells his fellow vigilante to step back so he can slay the villain, which Koichi writes off as the man being overdramatic before suggesting settling the scuffle through more peaceful means. The fight kicks off shortly after, with Soga firing a hailstorm of spikes from his wrist at Stendhal, which the vigilante easily parries before repeatedly slashing the thug across the chest. After realizing Stendhal wasn't exaggerating his earlier statement, the crawler slides between the two and knocks Stendhal backward before turning his attention back to Soga. He doesn't get far in fleeing the vigilante with the villain on his back, before Stendhal tosses and sticks him in the calf with a throwing knife. He tells the crawler to not interrupt his work and tells him that Soga is a worthless man that deserves to be killed. Koichi ignores his words and tries to flee with Soga towards a crowded street using slide and glide. Stendhal admires Koichi's good intentions in trying to save the instant villain but dislikes the fact that he uses his goodwill to side with evil. Stendhal then dabs a drop of Koichi's spilt blood on his tongue and paralyzes the college student, sending the two men tumbling to the ground. Stendhal walks up to finish the job with Soga, telling the man that no one will come to save someone like him from his judgment. Rescue once again comes from Knuckleduster, who dives in from above to face the crazed vigilante himself, fortunately not landing in the trash this time around. We then get the finally awaited Knuckleduster transition scene, which was a really nice touch. Stendhal says he has no qualms with the older man, saying they are one and the same and putting a stop to the crime in their world. Knuckleduster spits in the face of Stendhal, referring to himself as a hero of justice while labeling the other man as a lunatic slasher. Stendhal is disappointed that the man doesn't share his values, and Knuckleduster is the same with how the vigilante missed his best shot of hitting him with a surprise attack in favor of scouting out his opponent. Knuckleduster tells Stendhal that he has no options of safely engaging with him, as he can easily dodge and counter his spacious sword swings, and getting in close will leave him wide open for some nasty punches. The older man kindly gives Stendhal a handicap in their fight and places the wire of his grappling hook on the ground, saying Stendhal will be attacked the moment he steps over this wire. After weighing his options and rejecting the idea of faltering to Knuckleduster, Stendhal takes some steps back before taking a swift lunge forward in order to overwhelm the vigilante with raw speed. He closes in so he can throw off Knuckleduster's timing to counter and proclaims himself to be pushing himself to cross the line to victory, much like a hero would. Knuckleduster then steps over the line he made and smacks Stendhal in the head with a punch, breaking his nose and cracking his mask. The crawler asks Knuckleduster about the criteria he gave to Stendhal about the wire, to which his master replies that he never said he couldn't step over it. Knuckleduster picks up Stendhal's masks and states he's met plenty of people who use masks to take on a different persona, adding that this conditional application of a new persona can cause people to grow cocky. He advises his protege to watch out for people like them since people like them are the first to throw away self-preservation and morals, though breaking the mask would easily shatter that and send him back down to earth. Stendhal, lying on the floor and choking on his own blood, hoarsely states that he understands something after listening to Knuckleduster's words. In a sudden burst of energy, Stendhal hops up and trades a few blows with the other vigilante using his knives, before leaping up the side of a building. The bloody man says there are people more wicked than villains that lack resolve yet pretend they've always had it to begin with, phony heroes. Stendhal then licks the blood he accumulated on his knife and paralyzes Knuckleduster, and thanks the man for enlightening him and putting him on the proper path towards justice before escaping. Later, Popstep leaps down with some first aid kits to Knuckleduster and the crawler, who is currently treating the latter's injured leg, which I'm pretty sure is beyond first aid treating and realistically the crawler should be in the hospital. The older man tells him not to worry about the young man and tells him to focus on Soga. While disgusted at seeing the man again, Pop begrudgingly treats the man's gashes at her teammate's request. Soga asks Pop if the crawler's right in the head since the young man is trying to cheer everybody up despite Stendhal's attack, to which the girl replies with a flush on face that it's just her friend being dumb as usual. Soga is taken aback by her demeanor and looks away before sighing, realizing Pop's game. In a dingy, poorly lit apartment, Stendhal, over a sink, bleeding out, is rambling to himself. He grumbles the things he needs and lacks for the time being, like power, speed, tactics, and weaponry. He then pulls up a knife and says the last thing that he needs most of all, resolve. Keen is leaning against a nearby wall and poking fun at Stendhal's ramblings, before the man tells her to shut up and tosses the knife in her obscured eye, sending her falling to the ground. After getting his peace and quiet, Stendhal proceeds to slice off his broken nose and leaves his nasal cavities completely exposed. He looks into the cracked sink mirror in manic satisfaction, saying that the mask he made for himself has now become the face itself. He then slowly lurches down a pitch-black hallway as he smears the blood on his hands against the wall. Keen sits up, pulling the weapon out of her eye with ease, with the blade somehow only injuring her bees, which were smothered in a slimy trail of trigger. The girl is still annoyed at the vigilantes ranting, but she can't complain since she's still seemingly having fun. As Stendhal continues to march on, he then spits out his idea of where to go from here, a figure with no face taking on the color of the blood trail he'll spill for others to follow, so that the stains of his blood will guide the world forward. Now this episode was really good. My overall rate for the episode will have to be an 8 out of 10, the highest rate thus far, purely as it's been my favorite episode out of the bunch. I loved how it was more dark than the others yet still enjoyable. Knuckle Duster continued to impress me during the episode, and I like the whole idea that Knuckle Duster created Stain. I also enjoyed the character of Keen, who has a nice balance between a bubbly personality as well as manipulative traits, very entertaining villain. The episode has still left me in question of why Soga wanted to visit Pop and Koichi in the previous episode. The next episode is going to introduce a new character who was seen in the opening credits of the show, and I'm guessing she is going to be Koichi's potential love interest, and it seems that Popstep will be getting a little jealous. We have now reached the end of the video. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.